1 minute. It's recording.
Yeah, now it's starting. So, Namaste, Dhyanji.
Namaste, namaste.
Once again, welcome to the podcast on Arya Dharma, which is a very important topic for the today's world. And we are here with the second podcast for Arya Dharma, where we are talking on a very important topic called as Kautilya's economics and farming and the relevance in today's world. So, the stage with you, Dhyanji. So, allow me to ask the question. Can you please provide a brief intro into the economics of the Mauryan Empire under Kautilya versus the current economic situation? Is my introductory question. So the stage is to you.
Okay. Now, Kautilya basically, like I told you, was the architect of the empire of Chandragupta Maurya, and he came out with a detailed treatise on how the state should be administered. And it was because of his efforts and because of his basic foundation that made it one of the greatest kingdoms in the world. And then Ashoka reaped the benefits basically of what Kautilya laid the foundation of. So the wealth of Ashoka that came, it takes time, everything takes time. And as you know, a lot of wars were initiated, and Kautilya was basically, you could say, not a peace-loving guy. He was somewhat of an imperialist, I would say. He was always trying to advance the things of the kingdom, trying to add new territories. That's how it became so big. And but he also wanted to have a very stable kingdom. And I'll just, can I share my screen now, or should I share my screen?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So 1 minute. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are many translations of Kautilya, and the Kautilya translation I am using is this one, and there's another one by Rangarajan. Rangarajan I could not find online. My basic thing came from Rangarajan, which is a penguin translation. And there's another one that I have in my library. I forget the name. I can send it to anybody who's interested. So basically, 1 minute. Let me just 1 minute.
Can you please zoom a little? You can fit the width.
Pardon?
Can you fit the width?
To
the width. Yeah, it's not properly visible. Yeah.
Now, can you see it now?
Yeah, now it is.
Right. So this is Kautilya Arthashastra, translated in English by Shyama Sastri. And as you can see, there is a lot of books in Kautilya. I'll just zoom out a little. I'll put out. So the first book is discipline. That is how the king should behave, how the crown prince should be groomed. Now, all these were just books, understand, whether it was implemented in person or not by the succeeding generations. Chandragupta has implemented it, yes. He must have implemented it for his son, but whether they followed it or something is this thing. But then after that, there were duties of government superintendents, and there were superintendents for almost everything, as you can see. I will show you. There were superintendents of almost every aspect. There was a superintendent for agriculture. There was a superintendent for a storehouse. There was a superintendent. Just a minute. I'm sorry. 1 minute. There was a superintendent. Sorry.
It's okay.
Superintendent for agriculture. There was a superintendent for war. There was a superintendent for, you can see what are the superintendents. Superintendent for weaving, superintendent for weights and measures, superintendent of tolls, superintendent of slaughterhouse. There was even some superintendent for prostitutes. Even they were regulated. It wasn't illegal. And the punishments were so strict, so strict. Even if you raped a prostitute, you are given serious punishment, including amputation and castration, even for doing it to a prostitute. That was the level of protection of women in these things. Yes, we can say, oh, how can you do this and how can you regulate? He was a very practical man. Like, I'm sure if there was also a superintendent for, I think for alcohol and liquor also, there was a superintendent. It is there somewhere. I'm sure there was. I don't see it, but that also was there. So he tolerated sin in a regulated manner, which is a far better way than doing it now, where it is just sin and nobody knows what is happening, and much worse things are happening. With all these sinful activities were regulated, then definitely at least the state would have some control over it, and we could improve the lives and give more protection to the people who indulge in these sinful activities, because it is wrong in the first place. It should not be encouraged, but you know how human nature is. It is still there's a vast majority of the population that will have some stupid idea of what is good and what is bad. So, and like I've told you, in Kali Yuga, according to Parikshit, there are five houses of Kali. You know the five houses of Kali?
Yeah.
One is
I would
gambling,
like to.
one is gold,
Yeah.
one is liquor and meat and alcohol, one is characterless women, and the fifth one I forget. I think meat and alcohol are two different things, but those are the five vices of Kali. Now, however, unless Ram Raja comes back, like I said, in our generation only, let us hope to achieve Magadha. But these things go on. As in the Kali Yuga, these things go on. So it's better that they're regulated. That is what I'm saying. Even a man of Kautilya who has written so much about Dharma, his first thing I told you is about concerning discipline. And if you see discipline, it is the life of the king, the discipline, the Raja Rishi, association with the age, restraint of the organs, all these things, even the conduct of the prince, like I said, the conduct of the prince, treatment of a prince, how a prince should be raised, the duties of the king. So all these things were in his books. So his first book was discipline, then the government superintendence, then this law, then the removal of thorns. Removal of thorns, so basically the enemies of the state. That is what he removal of thorns, then the conduct of the courtiers, then the source of the sovereign states, then the sixfold policy. It takes a long term to explain the sixfold policy, but I'll just try to explain it in a short manner. The sixfold policy is basically how you make alliances. How you make alliances based on whether a king is more superior to you or equal to you or less than you. How you treat different levels of kingdoms. So that is the thing, as you can see, and the elements of sovereignty. That is the end of the sixfold policy. And so that is basically it, the end of the sixfold policy. And how do you go against a strong enemy? What is the cause? This is a very, very important thing. The causes leading to the dwindling greed and disloyalty of the army, because the army was given the highest priority in Kautilya's administration. The army was first, then came farmers. First is like how Shastri used to say, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So the first priority was the army. Then came the farmers and tradesmen and cattle rearers and this thing. Now, all these things were the six-port policy is a very, very detailed thing of how to do. Then vices, like I told you, the vices. Then the work of an invader. Then relating to war, how to fight, how to. If anybody wants to know defense strategy, no, we send our people to West Point and all these Hijra Americans. Now everybody's become a Hijra. Nobody fights. Everybody sends drone, which is sensible. Yes, it is sensible. Why waste a body if you can send a drone and fight? But there are things, these things like what are the forms of treacherous fights? And a lot of this is outdated in terms of technical this thing. But strategically, it still applies. The strategic this thing is still applicable. Then also the conduct of corporations. There's a whole book for conduct of corporations. And in the conduct of corporations, one of the most important things I remember is there was a tax on excess profits. There was nothing like today where people make 300%, 400% profit and keep everything. There was a certain limit of profit that somebody was able to make, and everything above that went to the king. It was not like you just made an obscene amount of profits like today and nobody benefits, the employees don't benefit, only the promoters and the shareholders benefit, and the state doesn't benefit. So all these things were taken care of. Then there was like I said, there's a great concerning a powerful. His whole thing was basically a sort of an imperialistic kingdom, but there was also this thing, the end of the sciences. And if you see in the end of the sciences, there is this whole this thing of called Anivashiki. And in the Anivashiki, there is something called the Varta. Now, the Varta is the fundamental state of the economy, that is agriculture, trade, and cattle. That is the fundamental basis of Kautilya's economy. I will show you a whole bunch of things. And there was also minerals, exploitation of natural resources, and so much of importance was given to Varta, basically agriculture and this thing. So that is basically the end of the sciences. See, Varta and Dandaniti. Agriculture, can you read my screen?
No, it is not completely visible. Fit to width.
Okay, now agriculture, it is most useful in that it brings grains, cattle, gold, forest produce, and free labor. It is by means of the treasury and the army obtained solely through Varta. The treasury and the army, the means of the treasury is obtained solely through Varta, which included trade, which included agriculture, and which included cattle rearing. So these are the three fundamental. Trade was important. Yes, trade was very important because trade was one of the pillars, but also pillar was agriculture and cattle rearing. Now it is also said it is a means to make acquisitions, to keep them secure, to improve them, and to distribute among the deserved. Now, what is deserved is mainly, if you see the Arthashastra, deserved. The highest goal of the Arthashastra even today is looking after the aged. That was the highest goal of the Arthashastra. So, a lot of the when they say deserved, a lot of it went into a welfare state, looking into people who are poor, looking into people who are aged, who could not look after themselves anymore. And then came all the people who contributed to it and who, of course, also the king, who took a good share. The king took a good share of the revenues because he had to maintain the army, he had to fight wars. So that may not be applicable in today's India because we really fighting wars as we have seen in Russia and as we have seen with NATO. It's much more dangerous to fight a war now than it was in those days because now it is not just restricted to battlefields, but it's restricted to the whole country with these missiles and God knows what all happening. They can destroy a whole city in a matter of minutes. Even Pakistan has got that capability. If we ever attack Pakistan and they come to a stage where they have no option but to hit us and they're losing on the battlefield, they will also use it. Russia also is a powerful nation like Russia. Russia itself has said, if NATO enters the battlefield, we will target your cities. So these things, as I said, in the old days, battles were fought into battlefields, and farmers were also protected. Farmers, tradesmen, artisans, they were not harmed like today. Only battles were fought on battlefields, and the people who generated revenue, the artisans, the farmers, the businessmen, they were not harmed. They just transferred the allegiance to the new king. But now in this modern warfare, they basically want to destroy everything. They are not bothered about keeping your artisans and your farmers. As you can see in Ukraine, they have mined whole farm. Thousands of acres, thousands of hectares of farmland is mined, totally rendered useless. I mean, this whole strategy of modern warfare is it's nothing compared to what was done in the past. And let us not get into that. Let us go into agriculture. And I want to tell you why I'm like I told you, the three pillars of the Mauryan kingdom, which maintained the treasury, which maintained the army, was basically Varta, cattle rearing, agriculture, and trade. All three was, and why it is important in today's thing, especially in a country like India. As you know, India, even today, 75% of the Indians are self-employed. We may be poor, but we are self-employed. And 60% of Indians today also are employed in agriculture. Now, there is a big game, like I told you, happening in West in what I call FUCUS, which is basically France, UK, and USA abbreviated. It comes to FUCUS. They basically follow a very absurd form of capital. I am not against capitalism. I am against mass production industrialization. When production can be done by the masses, I don't believe in industrialization. And I also don't believe in an industrialization that destroys nature. Because when you have industrialization, yes, now we can't have horseless carriages. We can have electric vehicles, or we can have petrol vehicles, depending on what is the technology. We can always this thing. But why do we need coal plants? Why do we need coal plants when there is a much more it's not environmentally friendly? Yes, if it bursts, yes, but nuclear plants are much more environmentally friendly. And even in nuclear plants, why are we spending so much money on useless things like a bullet train and rubbish, when we can spend even 1/10 of that money to think of nuclear fusion? Why isn't anybody concentrating on nuclear fusion when we can send a rocket to Mars? If you're capable of sending a rocket to moon, a rover to moon, I'm sure it is not an impossible task for us to figure out a way to concentrate more on nuclear fusion. Because as you know, nuclear fusion is like the holy grail of energy. There is a huge project going on in France called CERN that even India is a big contributor of. And I'm sure India can also do it on its own. Why do we need to only go to France? We have enough people. We should have some
Gyan,
sort
I would like to interrupt you. I would like to interrupt you on this question with this question. The Mauryan Empire was an imperialistic state, and now we are moved to democracy, and the change has already happened. And all the text what you have read was already existent from the time Mauryans were ruling the land.
Yes.
So why wasn't able to kind of perpetuate? Why couldn't we able to perpetuate, and we have ended up in democracy? And is the question which we could actually take lessons from the past and do it. So what has led to us being here in this state for all the kind of
one thing, like I told you, this concept of India, why did we end up in this state, right? Now, as I told you, India was Bharat Varsha. But even in Bharat Varsha, there were so many kingdoms. There was no actual There was Bharatvarsha, yes, but in Bharatvarsha there were so many kingdoms, and like Mauryan kingdom, there was Licchavi Republic, there were so many, they were all fighting with each other. And except for Ashoka, Ashoka himself consolidated, made one of the largest kingdoms in India, but even he, after his death, it fragmented. So this whole thing of whether why we now, you have to tell me now, in this democracy that we have has lasted only how much, 75 years, that's all. Before that, we had
Yes.
British rule, which lasted 250 years. Before that, we had Mughal rule, which lasted about 400 years. Before that, we had some Islamic rule, which lasted, even then, even during Islamic rule, but there was a lot of independent Hindu kingdoms. There were a lot of kingdoms that were not under the rule of these Turks and all this. Everything was also there. It was not because that we'll get into a separate topic, but basically India was always fighting. In the main reason we were conquered in the first place was because we were fighting with each other. Today we have a state where everybody has become a federation of states. We have become a formal constitutional democracy, and even now we are not fighting maybe with weapons, but there is a divide. Even now in India, the northern states get more benefit, even though they contribute less in form of taxes. They contribute less in form of anything except for population. The northern states don't contribute anything, but all their money comes from the south. So there is still a divide, not a military divide, but there is. It is the main reason we were not able to perpetuate this was because of imperial. Every state was trying to expand their boundaries, and even then, even before Islamic rule, there was always the concept, as per Bharatvarsha, of the Gram and the Raja Rishi. So there was a kingdom, there were the ministers, as you know about the Varnashrama Dharma, which is also mentioned in Kautilya. I will just show you 1 minute. See, the end of the sciences, there was always the Varnashrama Dharma in any part of Bharatvarsha, in any kingdom, there was always the Varnashrama Dharma. And as I said, there was the village republic. And before the Islamic invaders came, if anybody came, if the king was captured, everybody just took their allegiance. They didn't destroy whole villages. They did not commit genocide. There was just a transfer of the title, but the basic foundation of the people was not disturbed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the people, the kingdoms change, but the basic structure of Indian society, the Varnashrama Dharma, the Brahmins as the advisors, the Kshatriyas as the protectors and administrators, the Vaisyas as the people who are doing farming and doing trading, and then the Shudras as the service and agriculture and the artisans and in the courts. And as I have told you before, what we have today is the caste system, which, yes, it was perverted over time. It was perverted, but even during Kautilya's time, there was no real distinction between a Shudra and a Brahmin. Actually, Kautilya in his Arthashastra has made fun of Brahmins, saying Brahmins can never be a soldier. He has actually made fun. It is not fit to have a Brahmin as a soldier. It's better to have a Shudra as a soldier. Because if a Brahmin is made a soldier, all he will do is pray to God, whereas a Shudra will take his thing and fight. So this thing was not always there. I've seen today, I've seen in my own eyes, I've seen even today the rot of the caste system in India. It is the curse of India. It exists even today. Whatever liberals say, whatever everybody says, it exists even today. Even in Bangalore, it exists. Let's forget about the backwaters of Bihar and UP or backwaters of Karnataka. Even in Bangalore, I've seen the caste system exist. So, but I'm telling you, it is a fact. You can read in Kautilya. He makes fun of the Brahmins as soldiers and says the Shudras make better soldiers. Now, why would he say that? And as I have told you, the army was the most important. The pillar of the Mauryan kingdom was the army. And he says the Shudras make the best soldiers. So obviously, he valued them. Otherwise, he would not have said, he would have said, okay, let's have only Kshatriyas. Why do we need Shudras also? Right? Wouldn't he have said that? It is there. I can show you if anybody wants a proof, it is there. So there was a stratification. There was a stratification. But like I have also told you in my article about the original thing of the Varna, now let us talk about first of all the Mahabharata and Vyasa himself. I hope everybody in this India at least knows who Veda Vyasa is. Veda Vyasa basically wrote the Mahabharata. Veda Vyasa. He was the first one to write the Vedas. His day is celebrated as Guru Purnima. Do you know Veda Vyasa was the son of a fisherwoman? Does anybody know that he was the son of a? Yes, his father was a divine being or something, but his mother was a fisherwoman, and nobody ever says that. They say Vedavasa is the author of the Vedas. They say Vedavasa is the author of the Mahabharata. So obviously in those days, forget about today. Today, that is why we have become such a rotten third world society, because we have rotten third world thinking nowadays, where we think we won the genetic lottery of birth, and that is why we are superior just by birth, which I don't believe, which I'm treating my son also, training my son also, and which is also explained in the Gita, Guna and Karma. So why did the society decline? Decline of the society happened for two reasons. One was because we were always fighting, and secondly, because of our fighting, the Islamic invaders came, they destroyed some parts of India, they destroyed, but right up to Marathas and Vijayanagar, up to that time, it was there. Varnashrama Dharma was there. Yes, it was perverted. It had become perverted. That way, birth became this thing. And then once they all went, then the British came and totally ruined us. They stole from us. Whatever it is about the Islamic invaders, we like to, Arab invaders, we like to think. Yes, they brought people from Persia. Yes, they brought people from Turkey to administer. But they still had a lot of people from India also to administer their kingdom. Because even in Aurangzeb's time, Aurangzeb is supposed to be the most wicked and cruel man. 33% of his administrators were Hindus. So it is not that we have declined. Yes, we have declined, but now after the system of this, what I say, focused democracy, which is not the real democracy which is there in India. Like I also want to talk to you about the Varnashrama Dharma. I will just show you what the Varnashrama Dharma is and why it is important to return to the Varnashrama Dharma. We have seen. I am not talking anything that is, you have seen. Now, if there was Varnashrama Dharma everywhere, why is Ratan Tata the head of the Tatas? Why is Mukesh Ambani the head of the Reliance? Why can't we make a SCST the head of the Tatas? Why can't we make the most oppressed the head of ISRO? Why can't we make the most oppressed the head of the army? Now, army even today, whatever we say, is the pillar of the country. Is there any reservation in the army? Does the most popular person become the head? It is the most, yes, there are some flaws in the promotion and the thing that there is no 360-degree review in any government department. Forget about army. Any government department, ACR from the senior officer is all that matters. There is nothing like a 360-degree review, which is a modern management concept, which should be implemented. 360-degree review. That means your subordinates also should have a say on whether you deserve to be promoted or not. So basically, why is this Varnashrama Dharma important? Let us take your whole passion of India now, your IPL team. Why don't we appoint the most popular man as the head of IPL? Why don't we put SC/ST reservation in the IPL? So what is this thing that when the mother of the country, the whole system, the people who are above all these, the best get into the army, the best get into ISRO, The best get into IPL, the best get into the judiciary. So why do the worst, most third-class people get into rule over all of these? Does it make sense? Does it really make sense? If you see the people ruling us today, are they the best? Are they really the best? Now, what is best? Best means they have a certain level first of integrity and honesty. That is the most important. Integrity and honesty, as we have seen, even in among the topless leaders, they say one thing, they do another. They never say what they mean. They never do what they say. So if you don't even have the basic pillar, the Sat, which is the first pillar of Dharma, what is the use of this stupid so-called democracy? Isn't it better to have a kingdom where it is, where like Kautilya said, as I've told you, the whole thing, the first thing, discipline, which is what led to Maurya, Isn't it better to have something like this? Yes, we have declined, but it was there, no? Guptas were there. Like I told you, for Magadha of the Mauryas was set in 300 BC. And Magadha went up to Samudragupta, and Guptas of almost 400 AD, I think. Almost 400 AD when fire came. So almost 900 years. Isn't that something great? Can you really, like I told you before, nothing in this world is permanent. This universe itself is not permanent. So what do you expect the systems of governance to be permanent? As you know, the Varnashrama Dharma was different in Vedavyas's time, in Satyakama's time, and what it has become today is a caste system. And so there is always a decline. Even Ram Raja was there in one time, and today we have nothing of Ram Raja, only one Ram temple. Let us not get into that as what it is about. But even though there is a Ram temple, is there Ram Raja? Have you read what Ram Raja is?
We have 3 more minutes for the ending session. So should we continue it or we?
I want to tell you, Kautilya, and even though the pillar, now how do they make money from these pillars? There was a land tax. There was also a water tax. They basically, like if you see, I'll just see, there was a land tax and there was a water tax. There was a land tax and a water tax. That's how they get revenue. The farmers were given irrigation facilities. The farmers were given all sorts. Even the plows, they were given to plow. If any deficiency in plows, they were the metallurgists, the artisans were supposed to do plows and give it to them, and they were supposed to use it. And once they generated the agriculture, the crops, they were supposed to give a tax. It was almost 30% the tax. There was a water tax and land tax. Finally, the farmer ended up with just about 30%. After you take out the land tax and the water, the taxes were very high, but still they were all well off. They were better than today's India, where nobody wants to marry a farmer today. An article I read, nobody even wants to look at a farmer. There are so many middle-aged farmers in rural India who are unmarried. Whereas those days, farming was a pillar of the society, obviously. So how much time do I have? Purushottam? Hello? Purushottam? I think we have wrapped it up, right?
I think the meeting is going to end in another minute.
Okay, so that's all I want to say. We should go back to the Varta. Basically, three things: cattle rearing, and agriculture, and trade. Trade is important. I'm not saying trade is not important. Trade is a very important pillar because once you produce from cattle rearing and agriculture, you have to sell it. Once you produce from artisans, you have to export, you have to sell. Yes, but trade is also important as one pillar only. It is not like today where everybody has become an export Kuly and has no domestic consumption. Even Germany is failing. The main exporting agency now is failing. So unless we have a self-sufficient economy, we will never be strong. And agriculture, as the man has said, is the only resources we can call as our own. Agriculture is the only one that makes us rich. American philosopher has said, agriculture is the only riches we can call our own. It is the only riches we can call our own. So it is important. Agriculture is produced here, it is used here, it is the only riches that we can call our own. So is there anything else that we should talk about now? Shall I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah. So now we are focusing on the solution-based approach for the recognition of Arya Dharma in the current context and time. So how will we be able to take it forward? We're going to discuss in the next session.
Yes.
And we'll be able to focus on it more and what Arya Dharma entails us to take forward for the generations to come and bring back to the future.